Hello and welcome to the first live coaching of 2021. Yeah, the first coaching of the new year. When I started this, I didn't think that I would do it so long. I thought I'd just be doing this for a month or two, or even just a few weekends, I'm not sure. But here we are in the new year with some new coaching, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it with all of you. We had a lot of good posts, a lot of questions during the week. It was all really good. So there's a lot to go through. So I'll be pretty brief in this introduction so we can get right into the footage. There's a few new faces in the group, so welcome everyone who's new. I think it's posted somewhere in the description, but the way it works is you can post stuff in the group, questions, comments, photos, videos, and we can discuss it during the week. And then on the Sundays, I'll do a live stream like this, where I've got about an hour most Sundays, where I can go through everything that was posted during the week, and we can discuss it, and I can give my coaching, and you can ask questions in the chat. If there's something specific you want to know about, or something you don't understand, or that you need clarified more. So that's the format. So post during the week in the group, questions, photos, videos, whatever, and then we get into it in the live stream. So Happy New Year, and I think we're ready to jump into the coaching. We had really a lot of posts this week, so hopefully we can get through it all. If we can't get through all the posts, then we'll just save them for next week. Yep, Happy New Year, everyone. And yep, I'm still in Europe, but I'm planning to leave this week. Hopefully, we'll see. It's a bit difficult to leave at the moment. Yeah, we were thinking we were already going to be in Hawaii by now, but we're still in Germany. So we'll see. We've got a few things to figure out before we can jump on a plane and leave. So without much further ado, I want to jump right in to the clips. If you guys have any questions, write them in the chat. Yeah, I love the discussion that's going on in the group. Super cool to see new faces and to see old faces who are providing good answers to people who are posting. Dom, I'm very impressed with your encyclopedic knowledge of the past live streams. And it makes me think I should do a better job of posting them again on YouTube. There's not that many posted there. It's hard. I really struggled with the Instagram ones with the formatting. Instagram wouldn't save the files, and it was a mess with Instagram to then get the file and upload it onto YouTube. So from the YouTube days, or from the Instagram days, there's not that much to put up on YouTube. But with Facebook, all these videos can be downloaded. So they can be downloaded and then uploaded to Facebook. So that's maybe something that's interesting for you guys. If there's also clips from the videos, from the live streams, I can pull those out as well, which is something I've wanted to do, which is why I asked you guys to point out some of the best moments. So it's just a timing thing. But if you guys have the time, or you happen to be watching the old live streams and there's a moment that you find really helpful, let me know which stream it was and what time, and then I can pull that out as a clip to post individually, which will maybe help other people. All right, I'm going to just get into the coaching then. So I'm just going to go through the videos as they pop up in the feed, and I'm just going to get right to it. All right, so first up, we've got, oh, hold on, I've got to refresh my page. Make sure I've got everything. All right, so first up, we've got 2 video clips from Tom McGivney. And the first one is a forward loop, and the second one is a wave ride. And so Tom writes, here are some moves I'm trying to learn this year. Firstly, the front loop, though I'm not getting very far around yet. There have been some good conditions for it recently, so I'm hoping to be able to crack at these soon. And secondly is a video of some wave riding on a cross-shore day. The first term I've managed to complete on the wave. I'm trying to work on my timing to make best use of the wave, as I'm only just learning to sail in the waves. So great videos, great questions, Tom. I love the effort. I love that you're going for it. All good stuff. So you guys know the drill. I'm gonna flip the camera around. We're gonna get into the video and the individual coaching. So we're gonna start with the forward loop. So get this flipped around. All right. Starting with the forward loop. All right, so good effort, radical crash. I hope you're okay. I think you are. Good effort, good going for it. All right, so when you're learning the forward loop, I'm gonna go into some fundamentals here. So the forward loop, there's a common misconception about the forward loop, which is that it's a forward somersault or a front somersault. But actually, the forward loop is a downwind 360. So I want everyone to change how they think of the move. The forward loop is not a somersault. It's not a flip. It's not a front flip. It's a downwind 360. Here's an example from me. So if you see, my feet are always under my body. You see that? They're always under my body. My head never goes under my feet. It's not a somersault. It's a downwind 360. That is incredibly important for your mental awareness of the move. And I'll tell you why. It has to do with the head. So if you think of the front loop as a front somersault, then you're looking forward, you're pushing your body forward. And that is the opposite of what you want to be doing. So because you're doing a downwind spin, what you want to be doing is looking downwind, which is over this shoulder, right? So you're looking downwind, and you're turning your body in the direction of that spin, which means pushing the front hand forward and pulling in on the back hand. Note the position. The head is looking over this shoulder, which is in the direction of the rotation. So a lot of times in forward loop instruction, you hear that it's important to look back over your shoulder, which is true, but it gets confusing. And I've heard many times in this coaching and in other places, people say, well, why should I look back if I'm going forward? It's a forward loop after all. And so that's why I want to get rid of those labels, and I want to talk about it as a downwind 360. And you're looking in the direction of the rotation. So it's really important to be looking over that shoulder and sheeting in, pushing here, which is, if you think of it turning this way, right? It's a spin in this way, a 360-degree spin in this direction. Then all of those motions are in the direction of that spin. If you're thinking of it as a somersault, which would be this way, you're doing a very different set of motions. Your shoulders are more square with the turn, or with the direction forward in front of you, which then is sheeting out the sail. Your head is looking forward. And that's just not how the forward loop works. And that's because it's not a front somersault. It's a downwind 360. And so this is really, really key here. So we'll play it again. And I really want you to see that It's not, my head never goes under my feet. It's not a somersault. It's not a flip. It's a downwind spin. And so all of these motions, the pushing the sail forward, the bringing in the backhand, looking over the back shoulder, sheeting in hard with the backhand, all of those are in the motion of the spin. Looking over the shoulder, looking over the shoulder, looking over the shoulder. Okay, so that's the first thing to really internalize in your thinking about the forward loop, is that it's a downwind 360, not a somersault, okay? It's a downwind 360, not a somersault. Now, there are a few rules or heuristics that you can apply to the maneuver that will help make it better. Just simply will make it better. If you're not doing these things, it will be worse than if you are. And one is this wide grip, moving the backhand back. I've even got my front hand pretty far back, but the most important is the backhand back. Look, my boom clips are here. My hand is here. My hand is as far back as the grip on the boom would allow. Right? Like, look how wide that grip is. And it really helps with that wide grip to keep that rotation smooth and controlled and horizontal. The more vertical you go, the less controlled it is. All right, so the second important thing to do, which will make it easier for you, is to look back over that shoulder, which is in the direction of the rotation, and just really look back. And note that you're not looking down, you're not looking in your armpit, you're not looking this way, you're looking over the shoulder behind you. And as you can see, that's in the direction that I'm rotating in this spin. Okay, so we've covered two of the important sort of heuristics or body positions for doing the front loop, right? The wide grip, reaching back on the boom, the head. With the wide grip, you really want to sheet in hard. So I've heard it described as like doing a pull-up with this backhand on the boom. You're really pulling that into your body, and as you can see, I bring my elbow down, so I'm pulling it down into my body. So pulling the rig down, really sheeting in hard on this backhand. And while that's happening, I'm pushing forward with the front hand, which again, remember, is in the direction of the rotation, right? Now there's a third trick. So if you remember, the first two tricks are the wide grip with the pull-up action and the head looking in the direction that you're going, which is over the back shoulder, and over the shoulder, not under it. Okay, so those are the first two. Now the third thing, which actually comes first, but is slightly less important. I think that these first two elements are the most important. But the third thing is to really take off downwind. So it's hard to see here because we don't have a reference for what the wind direction is. But if we look at the paper, if you're normally sailing like this, and you're trying to do that 360, you've got to do the whole 360-degree turn. If you then go really on a downwind reach, there's much less to rotate the more downwind you're going. And you can even go almost straight downwind. So then when you do the rotation, you have, 270 degrees to rotate instead of doing the full 360. I'm not sure if that diagram is clear. But again, the more downwind you take off when you're learning the forward loops, the less you have to rotate, which makes a big difference because in the beginning, it's difficult to get the rotation and to feel comfortable in it. And so the less sort of difficulty you can take, the less difficult you can make the total move, then the easier it is to tackle. Okay, so we've been discussing sort of dynamics of the move. I'm going to do a quick recap, and then I'm going to offer what I think is the best learning practice technique, which is a bit different than this. So first thing to remember is the front loop is a downwind 360. It's not a front somersault. Your head never goes under your feet. You stay more or less upright through the whole rotation. There are three things that you can do to make the move easier. One, so I'm going to flip this order around to sort of, which is the order then that you're doing it on the water. So it's one is go downwind, really go way downwind. You can go almost straight downwind. Two, have a wide grip. Reach way back on the boom. As you can see in that video, I'm reaching to the clip of the boom. I'm reaching as far back as the grip of the boom will allow. And then with that, you really, once you jump, you really sheet in with that backhand. It's almost like you're doing a pull-up with that backhand. You're bringing it in, you're bringing the elbow close to your body and pushing that front arm in the direction of the rotation, which is downwind. And then the third thing is to look with your head over your shoulder. So you're not looking under your shoulder, you're not looking down, you're definitely not looking in front of you. You're looking over your shoulder, which is, again, over your back shoulder, which is the direction that you're spinning, the direction that you're turning, right? And those three things are really, really important. Okay, so you know all these things, but you're still scared to do it, or you do the front loop and you let go with your backhand, or let go of all the gear, which is a really common crash in the beginning when you're learning how to loop. So how do you get past that? It's a kind of fear that's automatic. It's not even a fear, it's just that your body is automatically letting go. How do you get past that? So there's a technique that I use to learn the front loop. Because I had a problem when I was trying to learn them when I was a kid. I would always let go with the backhand, and sometimes I'd land on the sail, and it was really hurting myself. And someone taught this to me. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Mattia Pedrani, the Italian former pro windsurfer who used to spend a lot of time on Maui. Or it might have been Riley Kuhn, who's another former pro freestyler. But anyway, the trick is, you stand on your board, out of the straps. You're standing with, your back foot in the middle between the straps, your front foot kind of bit by the mast. So how you would stand if you're kind of balancing on your board, but you're not in the straps, you're just barely moving. So it can be useful to do this where there's a bit less wind, or you don't want to be super powered up for this exercise, but so you're standing on the board, you get in the right grip, so you've got your hand back, both hands a bit back, and you've got that wide grip, and remember, you're out of the straps, and you jump up off the deck of the board and start doing that spin with your body. Do the motion where you're pushing out your front hand, you're pulling in with your back hand, you're looking over that shoulder behind you, and you're as you jump, you're twisting your body to do that downwind spin that is the forward loop, and you'll do the rotation and land in the water on the other side of the board. So it's kind of like a catapult where you're just holding on, and the important thing is to make sure that you're just holding on to the boom the whole time. And the first time you do it, it might be a little bit scary, but you just land in the water on your back on the other side of the board, and it's not scary at all after the first time, and it's totally harmless. Do that 20 times, do that 50 times, do that 100 times. It will help you get used to the sail dynamics, what's happening in the rotation, and it gets the most important thing is it gets your body accustomed to holding on during that spin where you're going through the wind. So that is really my secret for getting over the fear of getting into the forward loop. So once you've done that 100 times, then it's ready to go and try it live on the water. And again, go downwind, way downwind, as downwind as you're comfortable. You hit a chop, you do that motion that you've been practicing. Make sure you've got the wide grip. You do the pull up with the back arm. You're looking over your shoulder, over not under, and remember that it's a spin downwind. So those are my main tips for the forward loop. So Tom, let us know how it goes. It's an exciting move to learn, and also a move that you can really see a lot of progress in. Other moves are much more difficult to see the progress because I don't know why. Like back loops are such a subtle move that it can be kind of difficult. It's amazing when you finally land one, but it's a bit more subtle. Whereas the forward loops are a really quick move to learn. You can really see yourself improving. So Eva is asking, which way do you recommend the board to point during the exercise? Downwind also. No, I recommend the board just pointing straight out. So you can kind of position your body a bit on the board as if you were sailing downwind without the board actually pointing downwind. And I think that's the best because then you still have a big gap on the downwind side of the board for your body to land in. You know, if the board is pointing too far downwind, it's maybe a little bit, I don't think there's a risk of hitting the board, but it maybe feels weird in your head looking at the board. There's not much like water there for you to flop into. So I would just keep the board pointing straight out. All right, Tom's got another video. So we're gonna flip the camera around and we're gonna watch this video. This time we've got a wave riding video. So Tom, where is this? Let us know where this is. So some cross shore conditions, getting in a turn. All right, so let's look at that first turn again. All right, UK. Ulicum. I don't know where that is. Is that on the, which coast is that? All right, so let's go through this turn. So there's a lot of things that are good here. I like to see the wide grip. It looks like we've got a pretty wide grip, which can really help give you control in the bottom turns. Coming up to the wave, taking power from the wave. So there's a lot of things that I like here. You know, when we talk about wave riding, what wave riding is it's taking the energy from the ocean and it's turning it into board speed, right? So you're taking all this energy that's coming in from some storm off the ocean, and then you're transferring that energy into board speed. And that's really what wave riding is. And the better you're doing that, the better you're wave riding. So different parts of the wave give more energy than others. And, you know, the better wave riders, what we call better wave riding is taking more or as much of that energy as possible. So getting as much speed as possible from the wave, connecting with the wave as much as possible, and in the most critical sections. So there's a lot of good things going on in this turn. It looks like you're picking up that speed from the wave. It looks like you're a little bit early, we like to talk about power sources on the wave. And, not every spot on the wave is generating the same amount of power. So you want to make sure that you're starting on a place on the wave that's generating a lot of power and going to a place on the wave that's generating power. And you can turn that power, that energy into board speed. So we're going to go through one more thing on this clip, and then I'm going to give a few fundamentals that you can apply to your wave riding that'll, I think, help in situations like this and will definitely help in every other situation. So in this clip, one thing I'd like to see you do is we've got a power source here. I can see that the wave is starting to crumble on the top. So it's not a very powerful wave, right? It's crumbling on the top rather than breaking from top to bottom. But there still is a power source there. And so what I would like to see you do is to do a backside turn on a section like this. So especially in these kind of conditions, which are like cross shore, cross onshore, where you're able to go up the line, I want to see you get your board and face the bottom against that whitewater, against that section. Backside turns, so just coming up here, getting a little backside in. Backside turns are a great exercise. One, it's just a good maneuver to do, and you could even do a second one here. There's room for a second turn. It's a great maneuver to do in general. It also gives you speed on the wave, which can help with all the other parts of the wave for setting up or for transitioning in the middle of a wave. So backside turns are a fundamental part of wave riding. So it's something that everyone should be practicing, especially in conditions like this. And the skills are transferable. So what you learn when you're doing backside turns also will help you with frontside turns. And so now I want to just, Tom, tell you a few fundamental things about wave riding that I think will help you, because what you're doing is good. It's about instilling some concepts and thinking about how to approach these waves and how to use your equipment in the right ways. So as I've already said, wave riding is the act of transferring the energy from the ocean, from these swells, into board speed. And so it's really important that you're thinking about where you are on the wave. And one of the sort of heuristics, or the way I like to think about it, is you want to make sure that you're starting on a power source and you're going to a power source. And so the wave is not generating power the same along the whole line of the wave. I mean, maybe it is, in which case it's a closeout, which then is a very difficult wave to ride. There's not a lot of options to ride in a closeout. But maybe the wave looks like this, and then you've got a power source here. And maybe it looks like this, and you've got a power source here and a power source here. And so you start here, and then you travel to the next power source. And that's how you're going to maximize the amount of energy and then the amount of speed that you're pulling from the wave. Now, another very important fundamental concept is the position of your board to best get the energy of the wave. And so the boards are designed, board development has been going on for 60 years or more, I don't know, a lifetime. I mean, if you include, if you include like ships, it's been going on forever. But anyway, so the boards are designed to pick up that energy. And so you want to make sure when you're hitting the wave, and especially hitting the breaking part of the wave, that the bottom of that, or the wave is hitting the bottom of that board, because that's where it's designed to then, once you get the energy hitting on the bottom of the board, that it turns it into speed and acceleration. So if the energy hits the side of your board, it's going to push it this way, and the board is not designed to work that way. If it hits the top, it's even worse, obviously. You want it to hit the bottom, and so the way I like to think about it in terms of both the timing of when you're hitting it and the placement is you're getting a high five. So you're getting that slap coming from the energy of the wave, making that contact directly with the bottom of the board. So not like this, but like this, like straight on it. And so depending on where the wave is, that board is going to be a different place. So if you're hitting it really late, you've got to really get the board over almost upside down. And if you look at pictures from pros from different events, you'll see that often they are hitting the wave with the board fully upside down, because you've got to make that contact, that high five contact. And where do you want that high five to happen? You want it to happen between your feet. If it happens in front of the front foot, the board is really made to ride on the back of the board. So if it hits somewhere here, it's going to slow it down a bit. Whereas if it hits in the back, you're going to get projection. So you want to get that high five between your feet. And that's the best way to think about it. So again, you're getting the angle of the board so that the lip of the wave, the power source of the wave hits that bottom of the board, gets the high five contact. And you don't need to think so much about what you're doing with your body or with your technique. Really think about just getting that contact, and your body will do the work. You'll be amazed at what your body is able to do if you're focusing on that function. So one last tip with the wave riding fundamentals, Tom, and then I'm waiting to see the next videos. And that tip is that the boards are designed to be used on their rails, which means this way. So you don't want to be thinking about steering your board like this. You just want to think about tipping it onto the different rails. So when you're going into your bottom turn, you put it on the toe side rail. When you're going your cut back, you put it on the heel side rail. So you're not trying to steer it this way, right? And the board is designed that when you put it on the rail, it will turn, right? So you're using your board like this, not like this. So it's just about getting it on the rails. And then the board will turn for you. So like one of the biggest takeaways from the coaching that I've realized is most people make it too hard. Wave riding isn't that hard. The board is designed to pick up the speed of the wave. You just have to put it in the right place. So it's not about forcing it around. You just get it on the rail and get to the right place to get that high five, take the speed, and continue on your way. And that high five concept, all of these concepts also apply for backside riding, both frontside and backside riding. And these are just fundamental concepts of energy and boards. So it's also really similar to surfing or any kind of wave riding. It's a bit different because we've got a sail, so we generate some of our own speed, which allows us to cheat a bit and allows us to go a bit faster and to skip sections. But in general, these lessons are fundamental to riding waves. And if you internalize this, you're on your way to being a great wave rider. It's really that simple. So I'll repeat what I just said if I can remember everything. It's looking for power sources. So you want to make sure that you're starting with a power source, going to a power source, making sure that that power source is hitting the bottom of the board between your feet, getting at that high five contact. Super important. And then that you're not steering your board this way, that you're using the rails. So that means just going on your heels, going on your toes, going on your heels, going on your toes. And that's how the board is designed to be used. We've got a few questions I'm going to quickly read before we move on. So Dan says, "Hi Graham, if you get the time, could you share any tips on wave board tacks on the outside, please? Not planing. My hit rate for fast tacks is not bad, but non-planing is not so good. Do you jump around the mast early and backwind the sail, or get the board through the wind and sheet in? Thanks very much. Here's to lots of sailing this year, everyone." Yeah, I hope we get lots of wind and time on the water. Yeah, so I've got a series of videos that some of them are started, like the tack one is actually started, and some of them aren't started. And this is one that is a little bit better for YouTube content, the tacking, because it's a bit more technical. We have gone over tacking a few times in these live streams. So I'll answer your question quickly here, and then you'll get a more in-depth look in the YouTube video whenever that comes out. So I do both when I'm not planning. I definitely steer up into the wind, like straight into the wind, and then I also really hop around so that I'm not spending a lot of time on the nose of the board and sinking the nose of the board, especially when the wind is light. I think the stronger the wind is and the more you're moving, then the more time you have, so you can walk around more on the nose instead of jumping. And you also don't have to go so far upwind when it's super windy. Though I always like to go pretty upwind in my tacks. So I would say both. But again, there will be some more tacking content coming your way. Watch for it. I'll post it in the group, and it will also be on my YouTube channel, which is just Graham Ezzy on YouTube. All right, Amit recommends picking up surfing when the wind is down. It will improve your wave riding. 100% agree. H says, really works with the point of contact with the force of the wave. Cool. I'm glad. All right. All right. Yep. You can also do heli tacks if it's non-planing. Some people definitely find heli tacks easier than normal tacks when it's light wind, non-planing conditions. I'm not one of those people, so I'm always doing normal tacks. But I know that there are people who find heli tacks easier in those conditions than like a fast tack. So if that works better for you, go ahead and do it. I find maybe it's the boards. Maybe I'm using a little bit smaller volume board compared to my weight. So the heli tack is not as easy or effortless as a normal tack in those conditions. But I know that it is for many people. And so if it works, go for it. All right, next up, we're moving on. This is another wave riding question. This is from Ivor. Is it Ivor or Ever? Let us know in the comments. Says, all right, I have 2 topics for the next session, and I'd like to hear some advice if possible. Number 1, how do you practice tight bottom turns when there are no waves? I struggle to control the power in the sail, especially with cross on shore and a bit overpowered, as seen in photo below. It looks like I'm a bit late in my turn. Some suggest doing 360s in the straps. What do you think? And then the second part of the question, part 2, is what basic maneuvers would you focus on if you wanted to join wave sailing competition as an amateur/master in my late 40s? Both of these are great questions. So the first question is about bottom turns. Ivor, if you're still in the chat, which I think you were earlier, so you ask about no waves, but then you refer to the photo, which definitely has some waves. It's about a head-high wave. Are these the conditions you're talking about, or are you also talking about when there are absolutely no waves? So just clarify that, but then I'm gonna coach your technique that's seen in this photo and then the other photo sequence that you posted with special attention to your bottom turn. So I'm gonna get into that. The second question here is about competitions and joining competitions later in life. Competitions are a wonderful way to get better at windsurfing and to explore your ability in windsurfing. And it's something that I think we're going to focus on at some point during the stream. I've had some requests to do a competition-focused stream. So a stream that is totally focused on getting into competitions, how to get into competitions as an amateur, and also technique for doing well in competitions, how to approach competitions. So that's something that we'll get into. There are a lot of competitions, and there are a lot of people that put on amateur competitions, and we've got some people in the group who put on their own events and are also willing to help other people put on events, or at least give the advice, because it's apparently not so hard to put on an amateur event. So yeah, events, competitions are a very fun way to get better at the sport. It really forces you to focus on your ability. So what would you focus on if you want to get into competing? Wave selection is the most important thing for any wave competition. So wave selection, so it's making sure that you're on the best waves of the heat, the 2 best waves of the heat. So the biggest mistake that amateurs make is that they catch every single wave. When they try and go crazy, they try and catch 10 waves in an hour. And now most competitions, and you have to check with the format because every event might be different, but most competitions that I've been to and that I've seen, and Malcolm, if you're here, you can let us know how it is for your event. But for most competitions I've seen, there are only 2 or 3 waves that are counted in the heat, which a heat is maybe 12 minutes or 20 minutes, depends on the event. And so you want those 2 waves to be the best waves that come in. And if you're catching, small waves or waves that are difficult to ride, you're not really going to get a good score. And if you wait and you just catch the 2 best waves of the heat, so the ones that are the biggest and that are offering the most scoring potential, which we can translate to the most power sections, then you're going to get the better scores and you're going to win the heat. And it's that simple, and that's true in amateur competition, and it's also true in pro competition. So catching the 2 best waves of the heat. So wave selection is like 90% of wave sailing heats. And so when you're in a competition, a pro competition, there's really a lot of jockeying around, trying to get the best wave, staying on the outside, tacking, and making sure that you get priority for the best wave. So really focusing on wave selection, it will help your wave sailing in general, but that's also the most important thing for competitions. Otherwise, if there are jumps that are counted in the event, forward loops are a winner. So if you can do forwards, that can help. There's not that many people that are doing back loops, so it's not something that I would spend so much time working on if you're not already close to landing them. I mean, back loops are a great move, so work on them if you want to work on them. But specifically for the competition, there's not a great return on investment because back loops are very difficult to learn and they take a lot of commitment. Whereas the front loop is a lot easier to learn if you're not already doing them. I would say anyone can learn the front loop, whereas the back loop really takes a lot of dedication and it takes pretty specific conditions. So make sure you have the front loop and make sure you have the wave selection. And like I said, we're going to go more in depth into competitive sailing and tips and tricks for that and for sailing in a heat and training for a heat. And we'll do that in a future live stream. H has the tip to practice 10 to 12 minute heats, totally different than free sailing and improves your skill big time. Agree. So before you sail in a competition, wear a watch, track 12 minutes, put a 12-minute timer on it, and see how long 12 minutes is. See what you can do. It's actually probably a lot longer than what you think it is. But if you've never been in a heat before, it'll make a pretty big difference just having that awareness beforehand of what 12 minutes is, to get used to looking at your watch and to sort of being in sync with a timer while you're sailing. Because if you're just used to free sailing, that's pretty different. So that's also a great skill to practice. And then as well, H makes another good point about the tabletop. So forward and tabletops are 2 moves that you can learn. I'd say anyone can learn them, and they'll make sure that you've got 2 jumps to count, and then wave selection. It really comes down to wave selection in heats. All right, so I think we've got one question. Let me find that question, and then we're going to get into the bottom turns, because that's another great topic. Okay, so Sigurd asks, how do you prevent damage to your hands, shorter sessions, or remove calluses? So I don't know if I understand the question. So by damage to your hands, do you mean like holes in your hand, like bits that are ripped off, or like blisters? Because I think how I answer that depends on what you mean. So in general, you want to build up your calluses. And so like, I don't know if you can see, so I haven't sailed in like 6 weeks, and like these are the calluses I still have, and they're starting to come off now. But you just once you have a good layer of solid calluses, then you're not going to have a problem with your hands. But if you are having a problem with your hands, like you take a long time off of windsurfing, or you don't have consistent wind to to build calluses and to build strong hands, there are 2 tips. So one is you can do exercises like get half of a boom or like a pull-up bar and put boom grip on it. So you can buy boom grip. I even have some in Hamburg, which I've got to re-grip a boom, but I could send you a piece of it if you're in Europe somewhere. So let me know. I probably can't do it. I don't know when I can do it, but I can do it at some point in the next 4 months. I might fly to Maui in 2 days, in which case I wouldn't be able to send it. But anyway, the point is, if you get that boom grip like on a pull-up bar and you do a lot of practices doing the pull-ups, then it helps strengthen the hands. All right, so you're having problems with the calluses getting pulled off while you're sailing. All right, so this brings me to my second tip, which helps whether you have calluses or not. And so there's a certain kind of ointment called bag balm. So I've used this before, but I've never actually bought it. I have a friend who uses it, but I'm pretty sure it's called bag balm. And I'll post a link in the group, but I think it's used for cows. I think it's used for the cow udder. Like when they're milking the cows, it's an ointment that they put on the cows. I could be totally wrong, and it's not used for that. But anyway, bag balm, I'm pretty sure is what it's called. And it's a certain ointment, and you can just work that into your hands. And I think that's the best thing for making sure that you don't rip the skin off. So I don't know what it's actually doing, whether it's like strengthening the skin or it's just moisturizing it so it's not so dry. But anyway, bag balm is what you want. So you put that on, work that into your hands before a session, after a session, and I think that will help. It sounds like that will help rather than any kind of technique if you already do have a lot of calluses. So again, that's called bag balm. I'm gonna try and find a link, and if any of you guys know what I'm talking about, you can chime in. I believe, I know this sounds totally crazy, but I believe it's made for cow udders. So like when they're like milking cows and they put it on the udders. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but it really works. It's the best thing for sore hands and for making sure you don't rip your hands. All right, so we're gonna get into the all right, hold on. Jan's got a question. So he says, use cotton gloves at night with any good ointment. I'm not sure I understand that. You mean you wear the gloves, you put the ointment on and you wear the gloves over top? Yeah, I'm not sure. So Kevin is saying that he used to have this problem with holes in his hands, and now I do not. I found that as a former sailor, I started with gloves. I now would not recommend it. I think you want to build up your calluses, so don't do that. Also, use the harness more. Don't overgrip the boom. If you hold it tightly, you are not using your harness to its full potential. And potentially, your harness lines are not centered. Okay, so Jan, who, by the way, is an expert doctor, dermatologist, so he knows what he's talking about when he says to use the cotton gloves with any ointment. So great advice. To react to Kevin's comments, yes, I agree with not using gloves. And if you have to use gloves because it's really cold, use gloves that are open on the inside, so that are just at the top of your hand and like on the fingertips, but are open here, so you can really grip the boom with your skin. 2, yes, it is important not to over grip the boom. That's a really good point, Kevin, and thank you for pointing that out. I'm gonna make a little note of it here because I like that. So like when I'm sailing along, I'm holding the boom so lightly. I'm not gripping it at all. I'm super light, and I'm kind of moving my hands around a bit, and I'm really only holding it tight in maneuvers. So when I'm sailing around, it's a very light feeling on the boom, and the way to do that, as Kevin points out, is to make sure that your harness lines are in the right place and that you're really using your harness, and that allows you to use your body weight against the sail. How do you make sure that your harness lines are in the right place? Stand on the beach with your sail, hold on to your harness lines, or hook in, but you can also just hold it with your hand, and see if you can balance the sail like that. If the sail pulls forward, your harness lines are too far back. You need to move them forward. If the sail is coming like back at you, or opening up, your harness lines are too far forward, move them back. It's that simple to find the right place for your harness lines. Another good test to do, which is also a good skill to practice, is sailing no-handed. So sailing along straight, take your hands off the boom. Try to sail no-handed. Just steer with the harness. See how long you can sail no-handed for. You know, can you do it for 10 seconds? Can you do it for a minute? Just test it. Just see how long you can go for. And maybe we can have a little competition in the group. So get some videos if you guys are getting videos of sailing no-handed. But that will make sure that your harness lines are in the right place. So you'll quickly notice if you're sailing no-handed, if your harness lines are in the wrong place. If the sail starts to pull one way or the other, you move the harness lines to compensate. It's pretty straightforward. All right. We've got some more comments about like with cracked feet, you put on ointment and cotton socks and will help for the healing. Mark Dawson, I can't click the link while I'm doing the stream, so I'll check it after, but it looks like it's the right thing. And some people are using Neutrogena. I haven't used that before, so I don't know. But I've been pretty impressed with the bag bomb stuff. So some people in post are carrying their sails from the harness lines to see if it's balanced. I don't think that totally makes sense. Like it might kind of accidentally find the right place, but where the sail is pulling from is different from where it weighs, right? So like the weight distribution of the sail is different than how the wind is going to pull the sail. So I would always do it standing up in the wind, because then you see where the wind is pulling from. Otherwise, you're finding the spot that is balanced based on the weights of the sail. All right, so Kevin says, learning to adjust my harness lines during a session was a game changer. Am I pulling on my front arm, my back arm? That was a big change for me in my sailing. Yeah, this is huge. So if your harness lines are in the wrong spot, you're also going to get a lot more tired. You're going to get asymmetric wear on your body, you know, because maybe it's just your back arm or just your front arm that's getting sore. So it's really, really worth the time to find whether your harness lines are in the right spot. I'll make it a little bit more difficult. You have to adjust your harness lines normally if you're changing sail sizes. So the different sail sizes will pull from different areas. So often with a smaller sail, you need to move the harness lines a little bit forward, and a bigger sail, you need to move them a little bit back. With my sails, with the Ezzy sails, you know, with some sails like 4750, my harness lines are in the same spot. And if I go up to a 5.5, I might move them back, you know, a tiny bit. And if I go down to a 4.5, again, move them forward a tiny bit. But then if I go to a 3.7, I'll move them a little bit farther, a little bit more, larger increment forward. And that depends on the sails, and it depends on how you're rigging them. So it's always good to be aware of where your harness lines are, because it makes a big difference for your sailing. And so it's something you always need to be conscious of. because it changes with the different sail sizes and also different brand sails. So if you change sail brands, it's something that you also have to change your harness lines. Richard has another good technique, which is holding the boom with one finger on the beach, standing up, and that's the point where you put the harness lines. And it's, again, the same concept. It's like that's the place where the center of effort of the sail is balanced. That's probably actually a better way to do it than the way I do it. We're holding onto the harness lines, because then the sail's moving a bit with the harness lines, and so holding on with one finger to the boom, that sounds like a good technique, Richard, and I think that's what I'm gonna start teaching from now on. Tomas is saying he adjusts his harness lines when he changes his outhaul and downhaul. With my sails, the draft is really focused, and so I don't have to do that, but I can definitely see that with some sails being an issue. All right, let's move on into the bottom turn. So the other part of Ivor's question is about bottom turning. So he posted a bunch of photos, and we're gonna go through the photos. And he also asked about practicing in no waves, and someone else asked a similar question about practicing with no waves. So I'm gonna answer that later with the other guy's question. So I'm gonna flip this around. And Mario says he has his harness lines a little bit farther back to help with early planing. Also totally valid. That's fine. In fact, my harness lines are actually probably a little bit back from the center of effort as well. Just have a little bit more pull on the boom. So the center of effort is the starting place, and then go from there with what you need for your sailing. All right, so here's the first picture. Here's the first picture that Ivor posted asking for advice on. And I asked him if he had a photo sequence or other shots to help with the coaching, because there's a few things that I can't see in this picture. I can't see where his back arm is, and it's hard to see what happened before and after this. So from this picture alone, it's pretty difficult to see enough to give really good advice, except that this front arm can be farther back. But let's look at the other pictures, and they offer us more clues. So we've got two wave sequences. So I'm going to start with this one. All right, so we're setting up on the wave, right? Dropping in and coming up to the whitewater and coming back down. So if you remember what we were talking about before, is you want to think about riding waves with respect to power sources. This wave is a little bit difficult because you've got the power sources is like this hump. And so there's not much room to start at a power source and finish on a power source. And so you're going to kind of make a compromise no matter how you do it. So I think setting up in this location is fine. So I already mentioned that the front hand should come farther back, so it should be move it about a hand's width closer to the harness lines. The backhand also should be a lot farther back. So the farther back the backhand is, the more power and more control you'll have in your bottom turn. And so you can kind of start that here. And then when we're thinking about power sources, so I don't know what happens between these two photos. I guess that's this section kind of folding over. So there's pretty good power in this section. You can see a bit of spray coming out. So what I would like to see is that as you drop in the wave here, you've got your wide grip, and then here you're doing your bottom turn. I want to see you try to go with a tighter turn. So then I see that you're coming up here, so you're still at a similar angle to the wave. So ideally, what I'd like you to try to do, and this might seem crazy at first, but I want you just to try it, is when you drop in and you're doing this bottom turn, try to get there. So look with your head, instead of looking down there, look here, and you've got that wide grip, and try to get that high five. So you're dropping in, and you're hitting it here. So this is kind of a nice section to place your board. You get a lot of energy from this power source. Get that high five from this push right here. And you can do it. It might seem intimidating, but you can do it. So you've got to move that front hand back, move your backhand way back, and then you've got to look with your head at that power source. So as you're dropping in, you're looking about here, right? And so you're really trying to get that U-shaped bottom turn. Make sure you've got that wide grip. And remember that you want to use your board on the rails, right? So you're not steering it this way. Getting the board on the rails. And then try to get that high five. So try and show the bottom of the board. So wherever you come up to the wave. So here I can tell that you didn't get that high five because I can see you went from here, and I can see that the wave is hitting kind of the side of the board. So even if you're coming up in the same place as you are in this picture, which is fine, just get that board angled a little bit this way. And so all that means is you're leaning back a bit. You're just trying to show the bottom of the board to that whitewater to get that high five contact. And you can do it. It's not a really difficult technique. And you'll be amazed at how much speed and push you'll get from this wave. It'll really throw you. But it's all about getting that high five. So even if you're coming up onto a section like this, just get the board tilted like that so that the whitewater hits the bottom of the board, which will give you that projection. All right. We've got a question from H. Which I'm not sure I understand. Is this talking about harness lines? So you're saying it's more of a starting point to implement different scoring strategies, seeing your true conversion rates on tricks, also playing with upwind, downwind, and tides. So I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Is that about harness lines? All right, so the other thing, Ivor, to remember are the wave riding fundamental tips that I was talking about with Tom's footage. So again, that is that you want to be looking for power sources. So starting on a power source and going to a power source, using the board on the rails, and then getting that high five contact. And for you specifically, I would say, really think about getting these U bottom turns. You can turn a lot tighter. Your board is designed to turn a lot tighter than you are. And to do that, you might, I think like this position, if you've got this hand farther back and your backhand farther back, I think is a good starting point. But then you will probably find that at this point in the wave ride, you need to sheet out more. But the point is just to try it. So like my philosophy with these things is that you want to, isolate the end result that you want. So like getting that high five contact, getting the U bottom turn, and just focusing on that rather than the specifics of the body. And we can talk about body specifics, and we do often. But having a picture of those end results is actually more important and leads to better results than focusing on little things like about your knees or about your hips or whatever. Other thing you can focus on, which I know has helped some other people, is to like turn your butt to the beach. So that can help as well with those turns. So shooting out and turning your butt to the beach. But again, really just focusing on those fundamentals will really help. And get some more photos and post them in the group, and then we'll congratulate you on your progress and give you some more work to do. All right, so Chrissy is saying, hi, quick question before we're done. Should I lean more forward if I land on the back of the wave instead of in front of it when doing a backside aerial? Shall I lean more forward if I land on the back of the wave instead of in front of it when doing a backside aerial? So I think, Chris, is the question, is if you lean more forward, will that make it so that you land in front of the wave? That can help, but often it has a lot to do with the timing. So you want to make sure that you're hitting the wave right when it's throwing, and that gives you the projection in front. So it's getting that timing and the high five. And so it's not just any high five, but a high five exactly when the wave is throwing forward, and that gives you the projection to land back in front. But leaning is also important. So if you're getting the projection right, you don't have to worry about where you're leaning. You can be leaning back. In fact, often you are, after you hit the wave, you are kind of leaning back in the backside turn, like you're leaning really far forward, and you hit it and you get in the air, and then you're leaning back. And so it's really about that projection. But maybe as you're hitting the section, it can be helpful to lean forward, because that will help get that bottom of the board facing the lip to get that push, right? Whereas if you're leaning back before you get to the lip, then the board is more flat like this, and you're not getting that high five that you want. So, right, like in order to get that high five, and this is your body and you're going backside, you have to be leaning really far forward. So yeah, I would say, I guess lean forward, look where you want to go. So quick question, Aber is saying, where do you look for a tighter turn? Look often, so you're saying you're looking through your sail window. So in these conditions, which are cross shore, a little bit cross on, I'm often looking not through the sail window, but so if I'm bottom turning, I've got the sail open, I'm looking here. And so just really think about okay, if I'm gonna make a tight U on the wave, and you find the spot before you start bottom turning, and then as you bottom turn, then you make sure you're looking at that spot. And in general, you want to, at halfway through your bottom turn, you don't want to be looking here. You want to be looking, your head is more square with your body. It's not looking towards the nose of the board. Does that make sense? All right, Zio says a question on your bottom turns. Do you stress more on bending more your mass knee or your back knee? Does it differ from the top turn? Okay, so we've talked about this before, but not for a while. So I've got a pretty particular theory on bottom turn body position, and it's about power stance. And so actually, I think you want to have power going through both knees. And when we talk about back foot pressure or front foot pressure, that's actually not about the feet or about the knees, it's about the hips. And so if your hips are turned towards the nose of your board, you'll have more back foot pressure. And the more your hips are square with the board, the more you'll have front foot pressure. And so it's not bad to have back foot pressure. You just don't want too much back foot pressure. And so if you have too much back foot pressure, then you want to square your hips. And so it's about your hips and more about your upper body than about your feet or your knees when we're talking about back foot pressure. So if you're, I don't know if you guys can see me, but if you're turning like this, all my weight is on my back leg. You can do this exercise at home. So I'm imagining that my board is going this way. Now, if I turn my hips this way and I'm leaning forward, I've got my weight equally distributed on my feet, and that's how you get a more equal distribution. But my general theory with bottom turning positioning is you want to be in a power stance. So it's a very similar stance to like power weightlifting in the gym, where your knees are bent, you're bent at the waist. It's hard for you guys to see here. And then you've got this position where your glutes are engaged. You've got power that's going from your core down through your legs to your feet. And you've got this really powerful position, and then you're just leaning forward. And that's something that you can practice at home against a wall, where you're just leaning against the wall and you're feeling that power stance where you've got, strength going from your core down to your toes. But again, just to answer your question, if we're talking about back foot, front foot, it's actually more about the direction that your hips are turned. So if you've got too much back foot pressure, turn your hips, square your hips in the direction of the turn. Tomas is saying, look where you want to go. So yeah, I agree with that. And grabbing wider is always a good idea. Yeah, aerials are all about the high five, actually. Aerials are even more about high five than anything else, because it's about getting like the perfect high five, and so it's that perfect contact, and that's where it throws you. And if you don't have that high five, that's when you're going off the back, because then you're treating it like a jump, and you're kind of hitting like a kicker, but then you don't have the energy of the wave to push you in front. All right. We're covering a lot. This is good. Next question is from John. All right, Graham, want to say thank you. Cheers. All right, sounds like the live streams have been helpful to you. That's great. I've learned more in the last couple months than I have for the last few years. I particularly like the in-depth but simple approach to maneuvers. My approach is to visualize the tricks before I fall asleep at night. In the past, some of the pros' instructions have been way too complicated to effectively visualize. Your keep it simple, stupid method works for me. I am really interested in the fear issue. I've read The Inner Game of Tennis again, and I like this approach. He doesn't cover fear. I'm guessing that most of the people who are following coaching have windsurf, surf, skated, sports that all have their share of fear. All right, this is a great question. And I've been trying to do a bit of research on the fear, and I'm not done with that, because I have my own ways that I've dealt with fear, but I think fear is something where it is really particular to each person, and there's a pretty good field of study. So unlike high-level wave sailing, where there isn't much good study, fear and psychology and sports psychology is studied. And so I've been trying to research that, and I'll do more once I've learned more, and I can take the concepts that already exist in sports psychology and compare and contrast them to the different techniques that I use in my windsurfing. Because fear is a pretty important topic in wave sailing. So this is something that I'll come back to. I think the visualizing is really good. Visualizing is always a good thing. It's good to do before you go to bed. It's good before you go in the water. When I was doing a lot of freestyle, I would do not just visualizations, but also like a what is that called? The like really slow martial art, Tai Chi. Like kind of like a Tai Chi style of each move. So like doing Vulcans or Spocks in super, super slow motion on the beach, and just going through the motions, without any gear, just really slowly doing the motions, and doing that 20 times just to really make sure that I have the right mechanics of the move internalized, and it helps with the visualization. So great. That sounds really good. All right, next question. Kevin asked, what are some of the best resources for wave riding technique/maneuvers besides this Facebook group? All right, so there's a lot of good things that people post in the answers. So you can check that out. Trictionary, Windsurfing TV has some good things. Tristan posted a really good resource, but it's in French. I'm trying to fill this gap. So this is one of my big realizations from last year, which is that there isn't that much good high-level windsurfing instruction for wave riding. And so I want to fix that. And so this coaching is one of the steps that I'm making. So we've got the group where we have discussion, and then the live streams every Sunday with the coaching. I'm also doing in-person clinics. I think going on clinics is a great way as well to improve with me or with one of the other coaches in windsurfing. We had a great clinic at the end of last year, which I was really proud. It was amazing to watch the progress in the group. For that clinic, I wrote a book about wave sailing instruction. I'm doing some edits to that book, and that will be distributed. I have to figure out the distribution, how to sell it, how to make it work. I'm also working on some other things. So there'll be some more announcements in the group. I'm gonna keep the group alive. Hopefully it keeps growing like it has been, and keep doing these live streams. But there's also other things that I'm working on and putting together to help fill this gap, to create more material and more content for people who want to get better in their wave sailing. So watch this space. There's more coming. A lot more coming. All right, we've got another question from you about bottom turns. And so he wants to keep the nose down on the board. I'm going to flip this around again. So here's the photo. So we were talking about back foot pressure, and I'm going to bring it back to the hips. So if you want to get more pressure on the front foot to then drive the nose down, you got to twist the hips. So it's all about twisting the hips into the turn, twisting the hips into the turn. And that'll put that pressure on the front leg and get more of this front rail engaged. And that's really all there is to it. We were talking about head and where to look, and he's looking way down here, whereas, he could be looking up here. Like, this is a section, this whole area of the wave is a place he could get to. So you could look here instead of down here. But really, to answer the question, it's about the hips. So it's about instead of having the hips, sort of like that, then they're more square to the wave. You can really focus on getting those hips twisted. All right, so now we've got a question about, in my home spot, we have flat water. How can I do similar bottom turns and cutbacks? Is it possible? So this is an interesting question, and it's a question I get a lot. And there are ways to do bottom turns and cutbacks and, have fun with it and play however you want. But what I think is the best training to do, or the sort of fundamental training to do, is really getting used to your rails and using your rails and transitioning between the rails. So instead of trying to do really radical bottom turns and cutbacks, try to do S turns, where you're going toe side, heel side, toe side, heel side, and you're really carving, you're keeping your speed, and you're going toe side, heel side. And if it's flat water but with some chop, you can do that on the face of the chops and try and pick up some speed from the chop. So really working on using those rails and feeling the rails, feeling your board. There's no other distractions of wave coming or white water or having to get out. So you can just really tune your focus into your board and getting on the rail. What happens when your hips are turned more one way or the other way? One of the biggest sort of tenets of my coaching is that you want to be experimenting, and through that experimenting, it teaches your body what to do. It's not about just repeating the same thing over and over again. It's like, for example, with the back loops. Most people need to go more upwind. And so what I say is, experiment with it. Go upwind, upwind, upwind until you find the point where you can't go upwind anymore. And that'll teach you the point that's the right place to go upwind. You'll see what the spectrum is. And then your muscle memory the muscle memory bank is fully expanded. And so it's a similar thing if you're working in flat water. Really experiment with your hips, with your grip, see what happens with the narrow grip, with the wide grip, what happens. And just, again, really think about feeling those rails and not trying to do super radical turns, but really feeling the rails. So Thomas is saying to practice your laydowns, which is definitely something you can do. Laydowns, it's interesting. Like there's some good bottom turns that are lay down bottom turns, and maybe the best bottom turns have the sail laid down, but there can also be really, really good bottom turns without the sail laid down. So the lay down is not everything, and you can do a lay down. You can do a bad bottom turn with a great lay down, because the bottom. What makes a good or bad bottom turn is how the board is carving. And the lay down is independent of that. So like, for example, if you're doing lay down jives where you're really putting the sail back and then leaning over, that's not really going to help your bottom turn. But it can help your general sailing, which then helps your bottom turn. So learn lay down jives. Why not? But what I want you to really focus on is getting that rail awareness. All right, so we've got another question from you, but I think it's pretty similar with the bottom turn. So I've got the same comment on it. We've got some videos from Max. So I'm just going to play a couple of them. So the question is, these are his conditions. What are the moves that you recommend practicing? So here's his local conditions. Oops. Sorry. Why is this not playing? So from first looking at these conditions, I think that they look like pretty typical European conditions. I think that backside riding is a great thing to practice in these conditions, doing backside turns, trying to do backside aerials, as well as whitewater riding. So like here we see, that's a good whitewater turn that we just saw. What I like about whitewater riding is that it allows you to work on the fundamentals without worrying about timing because the wave is already broken. Whereas in the backside riding is a bit more focused on the timing. So you're getting a bit of both. I can see that this inside section where it looks like there's not much wind has a good little thumpy power. That's a good place to do backside turns because you can really use the power of the wave to keep your speed, and then do a backside turn on that powerful braking section. You can even work on doing backside airs there, where it might be kind of difficult to do the front side because it looks like the wind really drops off. Though here we've got a good front side. That's a nice turn. And yeah, really working on the fundamentals like we've been talking about. But I think backside riding is pretty underrated, and you learn a lot from backside riding. And it's great in conditions like this, which, this is not actually that side on, but it's also not side off at the same time. So you can go backside, and I fully recommend it. Yeah, and then as well as doing the whitewater riding on the outside. So on the inside here, it looks difficult to do the front side whitewater riding because it looks like there's kind of a lack of wind. I like that turn. That was a nice turn. Yeah, so looks like there's some good sailing, some good sailors. Whoop, it's catapult. Yeah, it looks a little tricky for the jumping. Looks like sometimes there's a gust and you're able to get going, but then you've got to line up with with the waves. So it's hard to jump on the inside where the waves are steep, and then on the outside the waves are kind of slopey. So that looks like a little bit difficult for the jumping. It can be better for forwards than back loops if that's the case. So I recommend really doing the backside riding, especially on that inside kind of bowly section where maybe it's difficult to get down the line speed. And you can work on getting, backside airs and really like hard backside hits, thumpy backside hits. They're so fun. They really help with your wave awareness and your wave sailing. And that's looks like a good place to work on them. And then for the frontside turns, you can work on the whitewater riding on the outside where you have these kind of mushy waves. If I think of more things, I'll post them as well. One thing that I think is good to work on in conditions like this as well, which isn't necessarily a wave move as we think of wave moves, is the carving 360 on the wave face. So it's when you're going out, you carve downwind on the wave face, you ride the wave, backwind it a little bit, and then complete that turn, going back out again. It's just kind of a cool maneuver to do and to have in your bag of tricks. And it also teaches you a lot about different aspects of the sail and the board and the wave. And those conditions are good conditions for learning, especially on those kind of slopey waves on the more outside. You don't want to do it if the wave is too heavy. But it looked like on the outside there, you've got the swell coming in kind of soft, and you can kind of bear off downwind and start trying to do those carving 360s. I like to do them in the strap. Some people take their back foot out when they go into them. I stay in both straps. And this is a topic that I've got a video coming out on. All right, so flipping this around, we've got a lot of stuff. So I'm going to try and go through the rest of this pretty quick. If it's too quick, let me know in the group and we'll revisit the topic next Sunday. Zach posted this interview I did with Windsurfing TV. Cool. I'm glad you guys liked it. I don't know why they chose this subtitle because that's not what I said. Pretty different than what I said, but anyway, you can listen to the podcast for my opinions there. And I've also talked about my opinions in this group as well about priority and everything. And my biggest issue with priority is that it's all about respect and not assuming that you know what the rules are. And so each spot has different rules. And so the most important thing when you're traveling is to talk to the locals, talk to people, ask them what the rules are. And this is such a huge thing for both surfing and windsurfing. If you go out and you're making like a frowny face or just like a blank face and catching waves, you'll have such a different experience compared to smiling, saying hello, asking the locals what the rules are. They'll be so much nicer to you and more welcoming to you. So I really recommend that. It's, I think, a great tip for when you're traveling to different places, because different spots do have different priority rules. So I know a lot of people say like, oh, it's just the first person on the wave, and that's the rule they want to apply everywhere. But that's not how it is, And some people come to Hokipa and they think they have priority because they're more upwind, but we don't have that system at Hokipa. It's the first person on the wave has priority system. Which means you've also got to be pretty aware because someone can already be on the wave, but you don't see them. And anyway, the point is to talk to locals and to approach it with respect. Anyway, moving on. So Richard asked about tabletops. So Dom linked to another podcast where we were talking about tabletops. So that's a good resource in the comments here. One of the biggest tips, I think, for the tabletop is that the feeling is like scissoring your legs. So it doesn't feel like kicking out your leg. It feels like twisting your legs. You're like scissoring your legs together. And then that's what gets the board twisted and around. So it's like you're like scissoring your legs. So then the motion is coming, kind of more from the hips, and you're pushing your legs this way. And then turning with the torso. And that allows the board to come around. You want to make sure that your grip isn't too wide, obviously, because the wider the grip, the less you can turn, right? So like if I have to hold my boom way out here, I can't really turn my torso. If I've got my hands kind of together, I can really get around, which is that twist. So it's a twist, not a kick, to do the tabletop. And the feeling is like you're scissoring your legs. So I hope that helps. We went over that kind of quick. Richard, let us know how it goes. Get some video, get some photos, and post it in the group, and we can talk about it. All right, I think that is everything. I think we're all caught up. Ragnar had an experience where he lost his gear, which sounds terrifying. So let us know if you found your gear. That sounds tough. And I think otherwise we've covered everything. Thomas is asking, what's my I'm on the wave sound? Yeah, it can be anything. So in Hawaii, it's standard. It comes from the surfing world. I don't know why. You do like kind of, it's like a hui, which is just kind of a high-pitched, I don't know, hui kind of sound. I don't know where that comes from. But that's kind of like a polite way just to let someone know that you're there. I also do that when I'm in the water. Like, so sometimes if I've fallen and the person who's riding the wave behind maybe doesn't see me and I'm worried they're gonna hit me and I just wanna make sure that they know I'm in the water, I'll say that. I'll do that noise just so that they're aware, but make sure it's not aggressive. Anyway, this has been a great session. It's been a long one of the long ones. I've enjoyed it. Post your comments, questions, videos in the group, and we'll discuss them during the week. And then, of course, talk about all of them during the live stream. Love it. This is the first coaching of the year, first coaching of many. There's a lot more content coming this year. So I've got a few different things. I did some surveys last year about the kind of content that people want, and I was using that info to kind of build what I'm doing. I might do another survey or two because we've got more people in the group, but I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm working on to hopefully make all of you guys better wave sailors and have more fun. All right, sounds good. Get your clips, get on the water, and have fun. Remember to have fun. That's important. That is important. And I hope that the next live stream, I'm in Hawaii. That would be nice. All right, enjoy. Have a good week. And keep posting in the group. We've got great discussion going. All righty, take care and good night.